Today I'm here to present the EU strategy for sustainable textiles and how it can spin the way to a more circular textile chain. Just to introduce myself, my name is Mariska Boer. I am co-owner of Boer Group, and Boer Group is one of the larger collectors and sorters and recyclers within Europe. Annually we collect 110 million kilos of used textiles and prepare them for reuse and recycling. I am also president of Erik Textiles, and it's actually in this role that I'm here doing the presentation and the panel discussion today. Erik Textiles is the European Recycling Confederation. It is an association of associations, and we advocate the interests of the industry on EU level. Okay, all of that having been said, let's start shortly about the strategy. It has been published in March, as probably most of you know, and the Sustainable Strategy for Textiles is largely a political document. It contains a vision, but also actions of the Commission and how they see the development towards a fully circular textile sector in 2030, which is 8 years from now. So I would say that's quite ambitious, and we need to really start moving there. What's important to know is that the strategy is part of actually different pieces of legislation, which all come together, which are interlinking. You have the Waste Framework Directive, which is being revised, and also the exports of waste are really looked at to make more strict. There's a transition pathway, of course, the strategy itself, and there's also the Sustainable Products Initiatives. These are really nice, easy words to pronounce. So all of that is part of the EU Green Deal and also within the new Circular Economy Action Plan. So this is a bit of the background. Yep. Then if we look to the strategy itself, like I said, it contains a vision as well as actions. And the vision is roughly made out of four different points. So it says that all textile products placed on the EU market need to be durable, repairable and recyclable. That's actually most important. And it also states in the vision that fast fashion will be out of fashion in 2030, and that we are, the consumers can benefit from high quality textiles, which are also durable and can last longer. There also needs to be a profitable reuse and repair service widely available throughout the EU. And also a competitive, resilient and innovative textile sector, which is of course what we are all aiming for here also. And last but not least, circular rather than throwaway clothes have become the norm. So this is largely the vision that the Commission sees, and they have also put that into several actions. And it's actually the actions that I would like to discuss here today with our panel, whom I introduce to you in a moment. But shortly about the key actions which are entailed in the strategy. So to set design requirements, or otherwise known as eco-requirements for textiles, to introduce a digital product passport, so we know more about the composition of the different garments, layers, but also fiber types, to tackle greenwashing, to reverse overproduction and overconsumption, and discourage also the destruction of unsold or returned textiles. Very interesting one also to propose a mandatory extended producer responsibility for textiles with eco-modulation of fees. That is something which I personally believe is a very, very important one, because that also may include having a mandatory recycled textile content in new products. And I believe by doing that, you will create a business case for recycling, which is something that unfortunately we are still lacking, because the situation is still worldwide where only less than 1% of all textiles are recycled in a fiber-to-fiber way. The last couple of actions to address the unintentional release of microplastics, to restrict the export of textile waste, incentivize circular business models, and last but not least, encourage companies and member states to support the objectives within the strategy. Okay, let's move on quickly, because I said my introduction would be brief. I want to leave as much time as we can for the panel discussion, because that's by far the most interesting part. of the presentation. So I would turn now to my panel to introduce you, and first of all to welcome you and thank you for being here this morning. I'm going to give you the floor shortly to say a little bit more about who you are and who the company is that you represent. So I'm going to start with ladies first, as usual. Erika van Doorn from Sympany.
Thank you, Mariska. Yes, Erika van Doorn, Sympany, which is one of the larger textile collection companies in the Netherlands. Actually, I say company, but we are indeed a foundation. So all the money that we earn, we spend on making the circular textile supply chain circular. So we are experimenting a lot in this area. And also I am in the board of the VHT, which is the Vereniging Herwinning Textiel, which is a sector organization for textile collection, sorting and recycling. Yes.
Okay. Thanks very much, Erika. Next panelist is Nicolas Prophte.
Yes, so
PVH.
I'm Nicolas from PVH. So PVH is the two brands, Calvin Klein and Tommy. And I'm leading the denim center for PVH. So I'm more expert in the denim industry. That's it.
Thanks, Nicolas.
Quick.
Erik van Weerd from SaXcell, welcome.
Yes, van der Weerd. Thank you. Yes, I'm CEO of SaXcell company. SaXcell is working in chemical recycling. We are working with post-consumer textiles, and we make new fibers out of it via the lyocell process. We are now in the stage, after 2 years of working in a pilot plant, we got so much data and experience that we are now working on a larger scale project to make a factory for making pulp in a scale of 1 to 3 million kgs per year. Okay, thank
great,
you.
thank you. All right, then we move straight on into the first questions. So I have 3 separate questions for individual panelists. One, of course, directed more towards the retail fashion industry, the other one towards the recycling industry, and the very first one to the collecting and sorting industry. So basically just took the strategy and thought up some questions and also informed them a little bit about the questions, shorthand, whatever. So the first question would be to Erika. But of course, the others are free to engage and also give their opinion there. When we talk about recycled textile content and a target for that in the future, this is something that the Commission really envisions, is a very important element to, of course, get the economics behind textile recycling going. How do you see that? What kind of target would be feasible and realistic, from your opinion?
Well, first of all, I think the whole textile collection and sorting in the Netherlands is paid out or based on the reusable items. So this is paying for the salaries and all the work that needs to be done to daily collect all the textiles in the public space. So reuse is always the most sustainable because you don't have to do anything with it, and it is basically financing the whole industry. Having said that, we are all waiting for the EU Textile Strategy because hopefully it will help us making the business case solid for recycling discarded textiles that are no longer fit for reuse. And we expect that the portion of reuse, the amount of the volume of recyclable textiles is going to grow, and reuse is going to be less over the next years to come. So that means that it's very important for the whole industry to find new ways to finance the collection and sorting, also through the recycling, which at this very moment costs more money than we earn with it. Mm-hmm. So it's very important to have a kind of a target for the whole industry, for the whole textile industry, to include post-consumer recycled content into new garments. This is for some products more easy than for other products, but having a target, I would say, is extremely important
Essential.
to help overcome this value chain deficit.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen by itself. We need rules or targets to include post-consumer collected textiles in new garments. And I think on the whole of a collection, I think about 10% should be possible.
Should be feasible. Of
Yeah.
course, that has an impact on our industry as we are recycling and we are sorting for reuse and doing that. So at the end of the textiles life cycle. But to implement a recycled target in new garments is also, of course, having an impact on your industry, Nicolas.
Yeah.
How do you see that?
We have I'm representing only the denim product category, and I did just the speech before, but for us, 20% post-consumer recycled cotton is a standard in our new fabrics. So there is many mills, many spinners in this room, but all our partners, they have the capabilities, or spinners, because we are talking about spinning here, they have the capabilities to take 20%. And we are exploring 30%, 40%. And I think the issue we're going to face, I don't see it in the recycling technology because I think it's going very quick. It's more how we can improve the collecting system, the sorting system, because we are afraid that we are going to miss feedstock.
Yeah.
That's the issue. And I think, again, it's a logistic problem. And I think there is a regional execution, also operational, and how we make the economical system and the costing model very competitive.
Yeah.
So I think scale is important to have the best spinners that we have in our portfolio in the industry. But I think this how we connect these different populations, collectors, sorters, and spinners, because they never talk each other. It's a new networking that you have to integrate.
That's the key, to have a
That's the
dialogue.
key, yeah. To understand the
fully agree with
needs and the limitation, because it's technical, it's purely technical.
Yeah, but speaking of technical, I mean, I also like your 20%. We're going to write that
it's
one
clear,
down.
20%.
That's very good. Yeah. Erik, how do you see the technological challenges? Of course, they are there for recycling textiles. And when Nicolas is talking about envisioning 20% post-consumer recycled textile content, let's not be mistaken with pre-consumer, because that's the real challenge. How do you see the technologies within SaXcell developing towards reaching such a target?
SaXcell can support this because the first choice normally is mechanical recycling. This is easier to do, costs less energy, but there are limitations because of the small fiber lengths. You cannot reuse fibers again and again. And in the chemical recycling, we make more or less new fibers out of the feedstock. So we start again with a new fiber, which can be used in a product with 100% quality.
Okay. That sounds very promising, very positive. Okay, then we are going to move on to the next question for our panel. This one is firstly, of course, to the recycler, to SaXcell on our panel, but then we will also have Erika and Nicolas engaged there. Digital product passport, it's one of the key elements also in the strategy. Commission envisions that to be very important for future developments, that we know more about how the garments are composed, what fibers are in there. Of course, this is very valuable information for a recycler, but such a product passport should meet certain requirements. And that's actually my question to you. Which requirements would you see are really necessary within this product passport?
Yes, one is that it's very important to have it, because for the chemical recycling, but also other recycling, the contents needs to be specified perfectly. Some content is killing in the chemical recycling. Some content can be used, but is not profitable. So for our feedstock, it's very important. But there is another aspect, and that is that the sustainable products are normally more expensive than virgin products, the recycled products. Yeah. And this makes it profitable to trick a little bit with this. And I think For example, this happened a lot and still happens most probably in the world of the organic cotton. The amount of organic cotton sold in the market is much more than the amount produced. So normal cotton is sold as organic cotton, which is very profitable. The same can happen in the recycled business. Also for SaXcell, the SaXcell fiber will not be the cheapest fiber in the market. So it's very important that we have this digital product passport, which also shows the transparency in the supply chain, because we need to prove that it is the product, and this is not that easy.
No. So there's also a risk there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And transparency is of course key and very important there. Yeah. Erika, you also have some thoughts on
Yeah, Erik was saying about virgin material often being cheaper than recycled material. It's very important to work together and build business cases that includes the costs of collection and sorting, because now the prices are often determined by market prices. But then you forget about the extra work that needs to be done to collect and sort all the textiles. And business cases need to include these kind of costs, and yes, it will be more expensive, but it is needed to actually turn this industry around.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, the recycled fiber, or the fiber to get it ready so it can be recycled, needs to go through many steps. I mean, that's what we see when we open a textile bin up and we see the great diversity in items alone. It's not only clothing. I keep repeating that. It's also shoes, accessories, belts, toys. And we first have to start sorting that, looking what's possible to be reused, and then again, a lot of steps, especially sorting for recycling, is also something that is very specific.
Yeah, actually, Erik said the chemical recycling process requires a kind of refining the feedstock, right? You need to be exactly sure what goes into the process. And so sorters need to be able to sort and meet the requirements by the recyclers. So sorters all around Europe need to invest heavily in sorting techniques to produce basically the right feedstock for recyclers.
Yeah.
And this type of investment also needs to be sort of financed through systems like EPR that we will come to later.
Yeah. And I think that's also something, Nicolas, that you also identify as being very, very important, that we need to invest more in technology to sort in a proper way for recycling, to meet a recycling process.
Yeah, definitely. I think for us, digital product passport is more a birth certificate of our own products. And to get this full transparency.
Yeah, a birth certificate.
Yeah,
Nice way to put it, yes.
We know how it's been made, what are the ingredients, who are our suppliers, and I think we believe sometimes we have full transparency of our own supply chain, but I think it's far to be the truth. So I think the fact that we're going to digital and we're going to have more refined and granular information is very valuable for the recyclers, because today, still, if you look at the labels of composition, there is a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
From what is written in the label and what is realistic the fiber, and can cause problem of efficiency for recyclers. And that's, especially in chemical recycling, has to be extremely precise.
Yes.
So I think for us it's more that. The costing model probably have a different vision between virgin and recycling, because virgin, the last few months, it was the contrary. Virgin was more expensive than recycled. And we have to be careful about the holistic objective, what we want to achieve, and the disruption of speculation about fibers or whatever. Of course, the scale is going to help us to make sure the recycling fiber model is going to be not aggressive, but competitive regarding virgin. Yeah. Of course, we have to have a look and we have to engage, but also it's also the effort of the brand also to engage. Even if it's a little bit more expensive, I think we have a role or a responsibility to take here and to stimulate our industry.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the next question, and you can just probably continue speaking, Nicolas, because that one is directed towards you. the Commission sees also an EPR framework on EU level, a framework which will allow individual member states to fill in the details, as there are already quite a few EPR systems being set up in the member states. The Commission also feels that there should be room enough for the member states to do the details themselves. But they do say, okay, EPR framework on EU level is very important. There are some elements which we should harmonize, and that's very difficult with anything within Europe. So I hope here we're going to show the opposite, that it's going to work. But when we speak about those elements that we find have to be harmonized, where there's a need for harmonization within EPR, what would be your thoughts on that?
I think I'm going to repeat a little bit myself with this morning before, but for us, EPR, all the legislation, sometimes it's also, we have a full team working on that, but how we can translate all this politician made in Europe in a very tangible and digestible information for us, for the brand, but also for the industry. I think that's the first work we have to do. Sometimes it's quite not super clear, but if I will identify what we expect is really stimulate the use of recycling fibers. I think that's where, what do we mean? What are the targets? We were talking about target before.
Yeah.
Can we set up a kind of a benchmark? It should be this amount. So for me, recycling fibers is very important. We talk about, and you mentioned it before, design for circularity. I think it's also a brand industry responsibility, how we can stimulate this thing. And collecting system, I'm coming back to how we can, this 60% we don't collect, still in the air or somewhere. How we make sure that we capture all these things. And of course, everybody in the supply chain has to meet the investment technology, but these are for me the three different axes that we should be
most
focused.
important things. Yes.
Can I ask something? Because you
Sure.
mentioned a few times recycled fibers.
Yep.
Do you always mean them post-consumer recycled fibers, or can it be different?
Can be both. Can be post-consumer. This is the most difficult. But also, don't forget, we also generate a lot of waste during the production system, the cycle. Whatever
So
it's spinning,
post-industrial, yeah.
industrial, and I think we should be open to have a mix. And I think we have done probably the mistake. We wanted to start with the post. We should have learned from the pre, because pre is easier. And I think sometimes we take the problem on the wrong side, and we make our life difficult. We should have started with pre, learn all together to see what are the bottlenecks, and after you engage post. But I think we should leverage both of the streams because they are important, both of them.
Yeah, because the pre-consumer stream is restricted.
Yeah.
In production, it's as small as possible.
Yeah, it's small. But I think the combination of chemical recycling and mechanical recycling together as two technology could be very complementary.
Exactly, we have the same vision about this. If possible, pre-consumer mechanical recycling is very logical, because your stream is good defined and not damaged too much. And for the post-consumer, maybe a part can be used for mechanical recycling, but also a big part where the fibers are too short should be used for chemical recycling.
So for me, that's the best combination.
Yeah, and together we can get a big part of all the textiles.
And we can increase the percentage. 20% can become even bigger.
Yeah.
So let's raise the bar.
That's good. That's good. No, it's good to hear, and it's also really good to hear this dialogue, because that in the end, that's what it's all about. It's really about bringing all the different stakeholders in the textile value chain together to start talking to one another, to try and understand you as a producer or as a spinner, what you need from a recycler. How can we meet the qualities? How can we meet the prices in the end? I mean, that's really what needs to happen, and it's already happening. So this will allow us in the future to really make things much more circular in textiles. I have one last question to the entire panel, and that's going back again to the actions that we saw earlier in the presentation that the Commission has defined. If you were to choose two key actions which you think are really most relevant, most important, what would they be, and why? So again, ladies first.
Easy. Of course, you need everything, but suppose you need to really choose two. I would say, can we have that slide on the screen?
Yeah,
with
we
the
can.
two?
but
little
then I need
challenge.
to be able to go back in the presentation.
Okay, then I do it by head. There
Yeah,
was
we can
something
put it
about design criteria. Yeah, the first one on my left and on your left, it's about design requirements. And in there, in the text, it also says requirements on minimum recycled content. I would have loved actually that this would be rephrased into a minimum post-consumer recycled content, to be precise, but that would be key for me. I think for the industry. And the other one is the mandatory EPR system. I think these two will, in the end, trigger all or help all the others to come about.
Thanks very much.
Same, I
Nicolas,
think I'll
yeah?
repeat myself, but I think stimulate the brands in the industry to take recycling fiber post-consumer. I think that's very important. Has to be mandatory. And design for circularity, yeah, of course. I think probably the experience we have, scale is difficult. Guidelines are quite challenging. So I believe we need to probably rework on this one. I think it's by steps. Sometimes we want to have the moonshot. We should be a little bit humble. I'd rather to have guidelines a little bit more open and we arrive to scale than to have the moonshot and we have 5,000 pieces. So that's this kind of discussion we need also to address. The industry is not completely ready sometimes with very holistic goals, completely unachievable. So we need to understand.
Can you give an example of how you already experimented with design for circularity?
Yeah.
What does that change in your typical products?
Branding, trims we are using, linings, which kind of thread we're going to use, just to make thinking about how the disassembly process is going to be easier for the recyclers or for the people opening the fiber. So this gives some few restriction on our side. And more, we're talking about costing. Design for circularity also has a cost inside. And of course, so the scale is a little bit challenging to have all these parameters. But it's a journey. I think before swimming, we have to try and to see how it goes. But we need to be flexible and to see how the guidelines can evolve.
It's exciting, and it will also lead to a completely different playing field. My estimation would be within a couple of years even. So it's very exciting to be part of that, for
Definitely.
sure.
Yeah, for us also the design for recycling is the most important. We are in an organization named Text Plus, where all the different activities, starting from collecting, sorting, recycling, shuttering, and making products, and the very complicated products with different mixes of materials, prints, all sorts of accessories, really gives a headache, and we should make this more of less complicated.
Easier to process.
Even in because I also worked a long time in home textiles for hotels, which are washed by laundries, and there during the time there was a mix introduced with polyester and cotton. In the past it was only cotton, and now with the thinking from today, it is more logical to go back to mono material, because then you can perfectly recycle the product, and it can be cotton, it can be polyester, it can be everything. But the mixtures, especially in the fibers, are very complicated.
I always make the comparison with the jeans that you had like 20 years ago. You know, the ones that you wash, you iron, put on, and then you think, oof, I gained weight, and then you just go a little bit like that, and then it's loose again. And now we don't have that problem anymore because we have elastan.
Yes,
elastan.
Elastan is a problem.
And
exactly.
But that's I think a very illustrative example, and it's also no way that we're going to go back to an era pre-stretch jeans, because we all love it so much. But we have to find solutions, and
we have to put pressure on the right people. The
exactly.
bioelastomer, it's also we are trying to make things better, but we need to put the pressure on the right place.
Yeah, fully agree. Okay, my signal is here that I need to wrap up. So again, I would like to really thank you all for being here this morning, for joining this lively discussion. And for me personally, I hope lots of these kind of discussions will take place here today and tomorrow. because I cannot say that often enough, dialogue and exchange of information between recyclers, between sorters, collectors, and between brands and producers, that's really, really key. But I think hearing from what I've heard today as well, we are on a good way and have a very positive outlook for the future. So I would like to thank you all for your attention today, for listening to me, for listening to our panel, and I hope to see you around later today or tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.